Ladies and gentlemen, you're all welcome to Fermanagh, my patch. So, if we get some IT working, why I'm turning around this lectern is when you've played in the front row for up to 20 years, you have a very, very stiff neck with very little movement in it. So rather than looking around, I'll turn around. And I would still like to see that man that had a bigger head than Robert Colvin. Again, to introduce myself, I'm Desmond Reid, Director of Regulatory Services with Fermanagh District Council. That takes in environmental health and building control. And the title of the day's conference was The Challenge of Change, Building Control, a New Paradigm. I thought Robert would explain what that word meant. I've seen somewhere in a paper recently where it talked about it could involve moving the coffee machine up to the first floor. I thought it meant moving the cheese. When Liam wrote out to us on this convention, he stated, Robert, Marie and I would have 10 minutes to give our views on the new model for building control going forward. The model, as detailed in the service review document, is based on individual councils, no groups, and something I would have to take issue with Anthony on if he's still here at glaring light, is a regional governance committee where councillors from all 11 councils will be on. The intention, I think, is 2 from each council, representing all the councils, which means we will have buy-in for all the councils. Now, in taking issue with Anthony, I would also like to pay him a compliment because I'll probably meet him later on. He's a lot bigger than me. But I am now 40 years in building control, and I'm just totally surprised today because I've now heard 2 group chiefs talking who know something about the building regulations. He could even quote the part or relevant to the particular issue. That's a pleasant change. The model that is detailed in the SRI document is a model that I have lobbied for over the last 30 years, as head of building control. And I am content with the model as proposed in the final document. And I say the final document. So rather than giving my views on the model, I would like to give you all my views on the foundations that this model should be based on. These should be customer service, eliminating waste, measuring performance, leadership, and enforcement. This will be the last convention, probably, before the structures of new councils will be set up. So this is our last chance to influence councillors. And councillors, this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity to set up your councils, your departments, the way you want your councils to run. It's not the chief executives, it's not the officers, it's you, it's your councils. So I would say, take it with open hands and use your influence to create this. When we look at customer service, what does customer service involve? It involves people, our constituents, our citizens, as we heard earlier. It involves doing it now. That means responding. Timeframes. Do it right first time. Efficiency, quality. Get it right. Do it within budget. Would you like to live there? If you pass the first 4 hurdles but you can't leap the 5th, you've missed the whole point. It's our citizens that we need to be working for. In local government and central government generally, there's a lot of waste. And I'm sure when you see the situations here, a lot of them will recognise that. But what is waste? Waste within a process is defined as being the activity that does not add value to the customer and only adds cost to the process. How much time do you think typical local government organisations spend on value-added activities? Would you be shocked to learn just between 5 and 10%? So what about this organisation? What about building control? Is there any waste in building control? If we look at how the full process is made up, waste, oh, this is this clicker, back. How is waste made up? Back to. These activities are the waste. That's the percentage of waste that's in any setup, and we need to eliminate that. These are non-value adding, and we should minimise them. This is the value added, which is a very, very small part of the process at the moment. We need to retain and increase that. So what are the wastes? There are 8 wastes. An acronym to remember is Tim Woods: transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, defects, and skills misuse. So how do I recognise what these wastes are made of? Transportation, carrying paperwork. I'm sure if you take a simple process like the paperwork that comes into any of our offices, it's delivered by the supplier, goes to a central store, it's then sorted in there, then when departments want it, asked for, requested, comes from the store to your department, then goes into cupboards, then goes to where the printers are, and then it goes to where the copiers are. Waste. Retrieving files and documents, major, major time issue. Now in some councils, I know, old files are stored off-site. So you actually have to get into the car, go to another building, get your file if you want to look at it, and bring it back to the office, and then probably return it again. In Fermanagh, we digitise all our records. So at the flick of a button, we have access to all our building control files. Storing files again and documents. Some people are paying for these stores. They're rent stores. The company that's doing our digital archiving this year in Craigavon, I was with them, they have a massive warehouse full of files belonging to local government and central government organisations. Handling and passing information and documents, couriering paperwork, especially in the cities and in the towns. We have people walking about from one building to another carrying paperwork, posting paperwork, and carrying paperwork again. Inventory, get used to this yet. Open files. Why not get them closed? Get them out of the road, get them away, they're taking up space. Office supplies, brought in, not used, go away to waste or dumped. Unread emails, and again, records and databases, not updated, not accurate. Motion, searching for files. That's the bane of my life. I have one member of staff in my office, and I call that person the Rottweiler. Because if there's a file goes missing, I can say, can you go try and get that file? 5 or other 6 people may have tried beforehand, but that person will find the file. But we shouldn't have to. Files get mislaid. Extra typing of information. Sorry, folks. Back. Extra typing, going to get signatures. Again, authority not being delegated. I know places where the head or the chief executive has to sign all the documentation and all the approvals. Let's delegate authority and handle paper-based documentation. Waiting. You've all seen this. Staff queuing at photocopiers, waiting for it to become free, waiting for systems to start up, computers, printers, waiting for phone calls, again, courier paperwork, customer responses, delays the process from plan, checking situation, and faxes. Over-processing. I wouldn't like to use the SRI document as an example, but writing a 100-page report when the size of an A4 would do. Unnecessary steps and duplication. More information than the customer needs. And we in building control are notorious for that. We write more information on documents and guidance notes that the customer doesn't need. If we're dealing with someone's particular subject, let's get to it. Repeating manual entry. Repeated manual entry of data. Again, we should only be once in and once out. With IT systems, if you put an address and a name and a description in once, you shouldn't have to enter it again. Checking layers of approval, again, delegate. And another good building control, handouts. Production, doing more ahead of the customer's needs. Making extra copies. I know quite a number of our meetings now are becoming electronic, but I'm sure you're still seeing the situation where extra copies are brought in case the councillors forget theirs. The councillors wouldn't forget them. In case the officers forget theirs, that wouldn't happen. Creating what I call shelf reports, reports that no one reads, they just go on the shelf. Defects, again, missing information, errors in data, customer contact details not updated, and rejected work. Another skill misuse, using the wrong equipment and materials, and continually using higher skilled persons on low skilled work. Can waste be eliminated? Some will be obvious. Some will be designed in and must be designed out through error proofing. Some will require a change of mindset. Some will require an act of Parliament. And actually some are acts of Parliament, because a lot of us in this room would have been involved in a consultation process on a proposed road closing order. I travelled to meetings all over the province. There was policies produced. There was guidance documents produced. What happened? Went in the bin. Minister decided we shouldn't proceed. So there's a lot of waste in that as well. Now, to demonstrate if we deliver an effective service, we've heard it referred to several times already today, there will have to be some form of performance indicator. The local government bill includes new performance management regime, and that's the root causes of waste. But the performance framework involves the introduction of an updated performance improvement framework. Councils must set improvements objectives and create an improvement plan. DOE and other departments may specify performance indicators for councils, for council-wide provisions which be set within context for transferring functions and powers. And I know Seamus is still with us here today, but I would ask if the DOE are setting performance indicators, can we please have realistic performance indicators? Because certainly the present PIs, as far as I'm concerned, mean nothing. They demonstrate nothing. Even the percentage recovery fee, as Robert referred to already, what should it be? You've heard Anthony saying the service should be user pays. But that is a challenge, councillors, for you. It's your decision. Do you want it all rate-borne? Do you want it all fee-borne? If you want it fee-borne, you'll have to change the fees. If you take the situation going forward, councillors, we could be sitting in a room or in the same floor or even in the same building as our planning colleagues. Our planning colleagues will be getting £800 for a house, say up to 200 square metres. To look at the plan, they might do one visit. We will be getting £300 for that same plan, for the same process and exercise, but we will be doing at least 6 visits on that one plan. And if you take somewhere the size of Fermanagh, there's quite a lot of mileage involved with that as well. So where is the level playing field there? And that's something councillors, politicians, you're going to have to look at. If it has to be self-financing, the fees need massively reviewed. And if we look at who are going to be our colleagues, what they're getting at the moment, there certainly needs to be change. Councillors must report on performance annually. Local government auditors' role is enhanced. You heard Ashley saying that earlier on. And the Minister may intervene. Now, to go on through all this new system needs leaders. And leadership, again, is referred to in the DOE reform, local government documentation. Leadership is defined. The goal for leadership is a local government with innovative, ambitious and proactive leaders at all levels who inspire others to maximise their potential. And the progress on that is the group is developing a leadership capability framework which will help the new councils assess leadership potential within their organisations. Now, I read recently in the paper where Clive Woodward was talking about the England team that won the World Cup at rugby, and how often have we not heard that? But in that team that turned out to be the best in the world, he said he had 7 gold medal performers, he had 5 which he would consider were silver medal performers, and he had 3 that he said were bronze medal performers. So for your team to be effective and to deliver, it doesn't all have to be star. You can manage them. It depends who the manager, the coach, the captain. It's the way we'll work with them. So we'll never achieve the 100% in any team. But that team, he said, proved you didn't have to be 100%. You probably heard a lot about Michael O'Leary and Ryanair at the moment. He's been a much more open person this last while. But I heard him say another night on television, he says he didn't know what his staff were doing when the customers were complaining. That's the chief executive of Ryanair, said he didn't know what his staff were doing. I remember when I was doing management part-time, a guy said, you know the best way of managing? The best way of managing is walking around. And that's correct. If you walk around through your organisation, you will be surprised what you'll see. If Michael O'Leary had walked around in his organisation, he would have seen what was going on. Too far, give you too much information there. As I say, going forward, we would need leaders. Councillors, you need leaders. You need to appoint leaders. As chief executives, officers, or wherever else there be. Leaders have a lot of different characteristics. But I will show you a few here. They're not mine, but you can take what you will from them. And I hope I don't offend anybody in here, but if I do, well then, it's too bad. Leaders are good listeners. Non-leaders are good talkers. Leaders are available. Non-leaders are hard to reach. Leaders are tough. They confront nasty problems. Non-leaders are elusive. They're artful dodgers. Leaders trust people. Non-leaders trust only words and numbers on paper. Leaders delegate whole important jobs. Non-leaders make all final decisions themselves. Leaders are decisive. Non-leaders use committees and consultants. Now, early on in this morning's presentations, you heard Robin Knox highlighting the problems that can arise when there is no enforcement process. There's no inspection regime, only self-certification. And for the new model for building control to be effective in its regulatory function will undoubtedly require enforcement through legal action at some stages. However, it is my opinion at present there remains an inertia in the current system of building regulation enforcement against any enforcement action being taken. Now, this can be for a number of reasons. Contraventions not observed can happen anywhere. We can never say we won't have a priory hall, especially in big developments. We just haven't got the resources to be on site as often as we want to be. Observed but not a priority, so therefore that means ignore. Observed, actioned, but traded off. No support from head of building control for enforcement. No support from elected members. Now I can assure you them things don't happen in Fermanagh, and I'm not saying that happen in any other area. But going forward, that is the situation. So Chairman and Delegates, these are my views on what the new model for building control should be based on. That is, good customer service, eliminate waste, create performance indicators that mean something, have effective leadership, and use enforcement where necessary. But that is always as a last resort. And what is the final objective? To provide a quality service at best value for the users of the services provided by the Building Control Department. That's an old mission statement which is still very, very relevant. And at the end of the day, what do we want to do? We want to shake hands on a good service. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.